Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of 10 to Life. My name is Annie Elise, and I am here to break down another true crime case for you. Now, before we get into today's case, do all of the YouTube things, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, it helps push it out into the algorithm, which is really what we want because we want as many of these stories heard as possible in an effort to generate awareness and be a voice for these victims and really just help educate and hopefully help educate people so they know what red flags to identify in the future and hopefully avoid becoming a victim themselves in the future. Now, today's case started in October of 2011, and it's about a little girl named Lisa. Now, Lisa was just a 10-month-old baby, and she vanished from her crib one night in Kansas City. She was never seen again, and the public is super divided on whether her parents were involved or if it was somebody else, all because 3 people said that they saw a man walking with a baby that night. So without further ado, guys, let's dive right in. Alright, 10 to Lifers, most of my loyal viewers already know why I love Magellan TV, why I always talk about him, why I can't shut up about him, because I am obsessed. This week I watched Conviction, Murder in Suburbia, where the docuseries re-examines evidence about a man who was convicted of murdering his wife, who is still maintaining his innocence, but huge spoiler alert, there is a mega huge twist. Now, what I love about Magellan TV is they add over 15 to 20 hours of new content each week, so true crime fans will never run out of something to watch. New docuseries like this one are added weekly, and Magellan TV really is the best value of any premium documentary streaming service, in both price and quality. 4K is always included in your subscription, and get this, there are no ads ever. You don't have to just be a true crime fan either, because they have all different types of genres available. They have space, history, you name it. But I'm always poking around in the true crime section, and don't lie, I know you guys are going to too, but they've got something for everyone. Now get this. I've been obsessed with Magellan now since I first encountered them, which I think it's been 3 years. They are like my go-to, and they are so amazing that they are giving all of you a free month-long trial. All you have to do is go to that link in my description, bam, boom, bam, you are hooked up. So go watch, thank me later, tell me what's in your queue, and let me know what you watched so I can add it to my list too. But chances are I probably already watched it. So go check them out, link is in my description. 10-month-old baby Lisa Renee Irwin was born on November 11th, 2010. Her parents Jeremy and Deborah had been in a long-term relationship together, and they were engaged to be married when they had Lisa, who was their very first child. Both Jeremy and Lisa each brought in a child from previous relationships when they got together, which meant that Lisa also had 2 brothers, a 5-year-old named Michael and an 8-year-old named Blake. Deborah was a stay-at-home mom who enjoyed taking care of the kids and enjoyed never missing a moment with them, while Jeremy was an electrician and worked hard to provide for all of their family. They all lived together in northern Kansas City, Missouri, which is also referred to as Northland. Lisa loved hanging out with her big brothers and was described as a very happy little girl. Lisa was named after her grandmother, but her dad thought that she was too sweet for the name Lisa, so he actually nicknamed her Pumpkin Pie, which she responded to at even such a young age. She was really just a sweet, happy baby who didn't know a stranger and always was smiling at everyone. She loved all of the foods that she was being introduced to, but right away her parents noticed that she had favorites, which were bananas and spaghetti. On Monday, October 3rd, 2011, at 2:30 p.m., Jeremy came home from work. He got something to eat and then spent some time playing with all 3 kids. 2 hours later, at 4:30 p.m., Deborah and her brother, Philip Netz, decided to go out together to the grocery store to pick up a box of wine and some baby food. Their next-door neighbor, Samantha Brando, brought over her 4-year-old daughter to play at their house, to play with Michael and Blake, while Jeremy was home with all 3 of the kids. The neighbors were all pretty close and had the same type of relationship, so Samantha felt comfortable enough to go and check on Lisa while she was napping in her crib, which she did as the older kids were playing. At around 5 p.m., Deborah and her brother Philip got back home from running their errands, and just a half hour later at 5:30 p.m., Philip headed out to go to his house, and Jeremy left as well to go and do some extra work at a local Starbucks. Now, usually, Jeremy didn't do night jobs, but at the time, the family really needed some extra income, so he decided to take the work. The timeline over the next hour is a little bit fuzzy, though, depending on the source that you read. Some say that Samantha left at 6 p.m. to get some liquor, while other outlets say she didn't leave until 6:40 p.m. Either way, sometime around then, Samantha went out to go and get some alcohol, while Deborah put Lisa down for bed at 6:40 p.m. Again, this hour of the story is a little confusing based on conflicting reports. So Samantha either returned at 6:30 p.m. or 7 p.m., and for the next few hours until 10:30 p.m., Deborah and Samantha sat outside on the front porch, drinking, smoking cigarettes, and Deborah reportedly had between 5 to 10 glasses of wine, which 5 to 10 is kind of a big difference. Well, not kind of, it just is. It's a big difference. While the two were outside, the older children were playing inside, while Lisa was sleeping soundly in her crib. Then at around 10:30 p.m., Deborah was pretty drunk, and she told Samantha that she was going to go inside and go to bed. Samantha hung out on the porch for another hour talking to another neighbor while Deborah and the boys fell asleep together in her bed, and Lisa was asleep in her own room with the door shut. A few hours later, at around 3:45 a.m. on October 4th, Jeremy finally returned home from the electrical job that he had been working on at Starbucks, which had actually kept him way later than he had expected. He initially had planned on being home around 10 p.m. So when Jeremy got home, he noticed that the front door was unlocked, which was very unusual for them, and he also noticed that there were lights left on. Obviously, given how tight money was, and the only reason he even took the extra job that night was to bring in some extra cash for the bills, seeing the lights on for no reason really irritated him. He then walked into the computer room, and he saw that a window was open, but when he tried to shut it, it wouldn't shut correctly, and it almost seemed as if the window had been messed with. After not being able to shut the window, he went to the boys' room, and he saw Blake on the top bunk of the boys' bunk bed. And then he walked past Lisa's room, and he noticed that the door was open, but he didn't look inside to check on her. He thought it was just cracked open. When he finally got to the master bedroom, Michael was still sleeping in their bed, and he noticed a kitten at the foot of the bed. Now, this kitten was actually a stray that Deborah had found earlier that day. Now, by this point, Jeremy was pretty frustrated, so he woke up Deborah, and even though she was still pretty out of it, he wanted to talk to her about the lights being left on and let her know that it was time for Michael to move to his own bed so that he could get some sleep. It's 3:45 in the morning. He was exhausted. When he asked her about the unlocked door in the window, Deborah was very caught off guard and realized that something was wrong. Jeremy then went to check on Lisa, but when he went into the nursery, he realized that Lisa was not in her crib. So Jeremy immediately ran over to Samantha's house to ask if Lisa was there, which is kind of strange, but I'm guessing that because Deborah had been so drunk, maybe they just thought that Samantha took Lisa over to her house to help out. But of course, Samantha didn't have Lisa. Meanwhile, Deborah was looking all throughout the house and telling the boys to look under beds and in different areas of the home. But deep down, she knew that her 10-month-old daughter wouldn't have climbed out of her crib by herself. I mean, I would say at least 99% of 10 or 11-month-olds cannot climb out of their cribs. At least I've never met one who could. After not finding her anywhere, they decided to call 911. But when Jeremy went to call, he noticed that all 3 cell phones that they had were missing. Each night before bed, Jeremy and Deborah would leave their phones on the kitchen counter charging. One phone was broken, the other was Jeremy's personal phone, and the last one was a temporary phone that Deborah's grandpa had given her to use until she could get hers fixed. So at that time, Jeremy and Deborah said that they were also behind on their phone bills, so calls couldn't be made on them anyways. Only incoming text messages and incoming calls could happen. At 4 a.m., Jeremy called 911 using his work phone and said that Lisa was missing and that a screen window had been broken. Jeremy then went outside with a flashlight that he had gotten from his truck to look around while Deborah waited outside the house with her sons for the police to arrive. She was absolutely hysterical. 10 minutes later, police arrived at the house and they began trying to put the puzzle pieces together. But Deborah initially told police that she put Lisa to bed at 10:30 p.m., not 6:40 p.m., and she also didn't say anything about having alcohol earlier that night. Police went into their home and did a walkthrough to see if they noticed anything different at all. While they were working on getting the necessary information to put out an Amber Alert, Deborah and Jeremy gave a very detailed description of baby Lisa, saying that she had blonde hair and blue eyes and weighed around 26 to 30 pounds. They said she had 2 bottom teeth, a tiny bug bite under her left eye, and a birthmark on her right outer thigh. They also said that she was last wearing purple shorts and a purple shirt with white kittens. Word was spreading fast, and neighbors who lived 3 houses down from Lisa and her family called police to let them know that they had actually seen a man in a t-shirt carrying a baby who looked to only be wearing a diaper at 12:15 a.m., just a few hours before Lisa was reported as missing. The couple thought it was so strange that someone was carrying a baby at that time of night outside in 45-degree weather in only a diaper. Another unidentified witness called and said that he saw a man walking along an intersection holding what appeared to be a naked baby, and this was about 3 miles from Lisa's home, all that same night. Throughout that day, over 100 law enforcement officials were searching for Lisa, and they spent a lot of time searching the woods that were nearby the family home. Not only was law enforcement searching, but the local news was blowing up. This baby had just seemingly vanished, which was not normal for that area, or honestly, really any area. Investigators also started interviewing people as the tips began to roll in. One of the people that interviewed was called in to speak with the police because he matched the description of the man carrying a baby in just a diaper the night of Lisa's disappearance. His name was John Tanko, but he also went by the nickname Jersey, and he was a homeless man who did odd jobs around the neighborhood that Lisa and her family lived in. On October 3rd, Jersey was staying at a nearby house working on the lawn while the owners of the home were out of town. A next-door neighbor to the house that he was staying in told the media that she saw Jersey earlier that day around 1 p.m. before she went to the store. She said that he was working outside working on the lawn, but when she got back later that night around 9:30 p.m., she noticed that the sprinklers were still on, but she didn't see anyone. She said that before she went to bed, she looked out the windows and saw that the sprinklers were off, but that she hadn't seen Jersey since earlier that day at 1 p.m. However, Jersey was interviewed and then cleared from the investigation. But Jersey had an ex-girlfriend named Megan Wright, and the couple had broken up a week or 2 prior to Lisa's disappearance. Megan claimed that they broke up because Jersey was going back toward more of a criminal mentality, jailhouse mentality, and according to her, just heading into a direction that she had no interest in going. But it was rumored that before the breakup, Megan had said that she wanted to have a baby, which kind of made people wonder if that had anything to do with Lisa's disappearance. Megan's name came up for another reason too. Remember the missing cell phones that apparently couldn't make any outgoing calls? Well, around midnight, the night of Lisa's disappearance, Jeremy's cell phone records showed an attempted call to Megan's phone. But despite living close to each other, Megan and the family didn't know each other. So obviously this phone call was a little bit suspicious and weird, to say the least. But Megan claimed that she was living with multiple people who used her phone. Surely it was for somebody else. Shortly after, during a Facebook Q&A that Megan put up to help clear her name, she said that she had let someone named Dane Greathouse borrow her phone. Dane stayed the night at her house that night after being kicked out weeks earlier for rumored drug involvement. An anonymous ex-roommate of Megan's also said that Dane was likely the one with the phone that night, and that when he talked on the phone with Dane that evening, Dane had been acting edgy and secretive. The ex-roommate said that they didn't think Dane would harm a child, but it wouldn't be out of the question for him to help with a cover-up of some sort. So as the investigation was starting to heat up, just 12 hours after the Amber Alert for Lisa was sent out, it was canceled, even though there was no sign of Lisa. When asked about why the alert was canceled, Kansas City Police Department Captain Steve Young said, "An Amber Alert is for immediate sense of urgency. After about 12 hours, it's kind of used up its effectiveness. However, that doesn't change anything we're doing at all." Which I guess makes sense to a certain degree, but wouldn't finding her still be super urgent? Shortly after that, another weird thing was discovered. And this was a call that the police responded to at an apartment complex less than a half mile from Lisa's home, and it was from 2:27 a.m., the morning she had gone missing. A man reported a dumpster fire, saying he saw flames that were shooting pretty high into the air and that he thought an accelerant had been used. When the dumpster was searched, burnt baby clothing was found, but it was not the clothing that fit the description of what Lisa had been wearing the night that she went missing. Now, I just want to quickly show you a map so you can understand where all of these things were going on. As you can see, everything happening that night was very close to Lisa's house, so it made sense that people and the police were questioning it all. Only 2 days into an unsuccessful investigation, on October 6, 2011, authorities held a press conference where they said that Jeremy and Deborah were no longer cooperating with investigators. Kansas City Police spokesman Steve Young told the public, and I quote, "Tonight they decided to stop talking to detectives, and I don't have to illustrate how that affects the investigation. That speaks for itself." They said that earlier that day, 100 officers combed through the woods near Lisa's house as well as the industrial area, and they had lifted drain covers to crawl in and search in just in case. The following day, both Jeremy and Deborah spoke to Matt Lauer on the Today Show regarding the accusations.
You know, I have to say that unfortunately I have covered way too many of these cases over the years of missing children, abducted children. Children have gone missing for one reason or another. And I have rarely seen the police come out and make a statement like the one they made yesterday, saying that the parents have stopped cooperating without having a reason to do so. So why do you think they've made this statement?
We were at the station yesterday, being interviewed again, and I just had reached my boiling point, and I asked them, I said, guys, I can't do this anymore today. I need a break. I can't answer any more questions. Then we asked to leave, and then the next thing we knew, was the press conference yesterday evening.
The two went on to discuss that they didn't have any hard feelings toward the police because they knew that them being questioned was just part of the process that had to be done. When asked about a lie detector test, Deborah said that she was told she failed.
Have both of you taken lie detector tests, polygraphs, as part of this investigation?
I have. I volunteered.
What were the results of that?
Not.
They said that I failed, and I continued to say that's not possible, because I don't know where she's at. I did not do this, and it.
Did they say specifically what
some
question
of the stuff
you?
They said was.
Did they say specifically what question you may have failed on?
I don't remember which one it was, but they just kept saying I failed, and I said that's not possible. And I mean, what do you say when someone tells you that and you know you didn't do anything?
And Jeremy, you have not taken a polygraph?
No, I have not.
Have you been asked to? Would you be willing to?
I have not been asked to. I'd be willing to do whatever it takes to bring my daughter Lisa home where she belongs. If that's what it takes. That's what we can do.
Deborah and Jeremy wrapped up the interview by saying they had zero doubt that either of them were withholding information from one another and that they are grateful for the work of the police department. Now, right around that time that the interview was released, an anonymous donor put together a $100,000 reward for bringing back baby Lisa, as well as hiring a private investigator to help. That just speaks to how desperate the community was. In fact, one of the girls who works with me grew up in that area and remembered it being on every single news show and said that it was pretty much all anyone could talk about. A few days after the interview, on October 15th, someone walking by an abandoned house near Lisa's neighborhood told police that they looked into the house and saw some interesting items inside that could be important to the case. So police went there, and they found a backpack with diapers and baby wipes. Not only that, but soiled diapers were also found in the wooded area across the street from Lisa's house. But investigators didn't think that the diapers were related to the case, and they claimed that it wasn't uncommon to find diapers in abandoned homes, and that the diapers seemed to have been there for a while. So, it was back to square one. After that, both Jeremy and Deborah went on the Today Show to do another sit-down interview in their house this time. Now that aired on Monday, October 17th. Deborah admitted information that she didn't previously tell the police.
Were you drinking that night?
Yes.
How much?
Enough to be drunk.
So you were drunk?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are going to say, Deborah, you were drunk that night. Is there any chance you did anything that hurt your daughter that you're just not telling us?
No. And if I thought there was a chance, I'd say it. No. I don't think that alcohol changes a person enough to do something like that.
Later on, when Deborah was asked about why she didn't mention the alcohol to police at first, she said that it was because she wasn't directly asked if she had been drinking that night, and that it had nothing to do with Lisa vanishing. She also said at one point that people were making up rumors that she was mixing pills and alcohol. She admitted that she did take anxiety pills regularly, but that they didn't affect her drinking that night. Throughout each interview, Deborah would bring up that she was afraid she was going to be arrested because she knew if that happened, no one would look for Lisa anymore. Which, a couple of thoughts here. It's pretty common knowledge that you should not mix anxiety meds with alcohol, especially the amount of alcohol that Deborah apparently consumed. Also, I can understand why she was scared, but then why not just cooperate with the police? Your daughter is missing. Your baby is missing. In that same Today Show interview, Deborah also clarified that the last time she saw Lisa was at 6:40 p.m. that night, and not at 10:30 like she had initially told police. She said she put Lisa to bed a little bit early that night because Lisa wasn't feeling well and had a cold and an ear infection, but that she wasn't super sick. This meant that there was about a 9-hour window that went by from the last time that Lisa was seen until Jeremy realized she was missing from her crib. Deborah also said that she was no longer comfortable letting investigators interview their other 2 children, even though she thought they did hear something that night.
They said they heard noises, but I don't know if that was before we went to sleep or after. I have not sat down and talked to them about it, specifically to not have to put them through anything else.
Which, I can understand not wanting to bring your other kids into things too much, but if you thought that they had any bit of information to help bring home your daughter, wouldn't you take that risk? That same day, the public learned that Deborah and Jeremy had gotten a pretty high-profile New York defense attorney named Joe Tacopina to represent them. Now, Joe had a list of well-known clients, such as Michael Jackson, Johan Vandersloot from the Natalie Holloway case. I mean, high profile. It initially wasn't made very clear how they were paying for Joe, because up until that point, they had hired a lawyer working pro bono for them, since they really weren't doing well financially. Remember, Jeremy was taking odd jobs middle of the night, trying to make ends meet. How are you now affording this high-profile lawyer? Joe was quick to come to Deborah's defense as to why she mixed up her times. And he said, and I quote, "On a normal night when putting your kids to bed, you're not exactly clocking the time. She's a mother who is in a high state of trauma, who trembles every day and cries. If her recollection isn't what it should be with certain times, I don't think we can be too hard on those inconsistencies, if they are inconsistencies at all." Joe also stated that the couple would be done doing any public interviews for the time being, so that the focus could remain on finding Lisa. Now, I totally get the stopping interviews part, but as a mother, I would know the difference if I put my kids to bed at 6 o'clock or after 10 o'clock. That is a huge difference in hours, and usually there is a extenuating circumstance as to why you're not sticking with the bedtime routine, at least for me anyway, because I'm super type A. If it's going after 6:30 or 7 p.m., it's a reason. There's an event or there's something, so it's like, I'd clock that. I'd remember that. But maybe things were different. Maybe the lifestyle here was different. So as the investigation continued, the public seemed to turn on Deborah, and a lot of the focus went on her and the inconsistencies that she had told the police. On October 20th, Shirley Falfe did an interview with the Huffington Post. Shirley said that she and Deborah used to be best friends. She said the two of them met in 2002 when they were each military wives and lived across the street from one another in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. This was back when Deborah was married to Sean Bradley. She also said that the two had been separated for 4 years, but not actually divorced. Anyway, Shirley said that Deborah had a very different side to her, saying, and I quote, "She was my friend at one time, and I loved to be around her. But when I saw the other side of her, and I got to know the true Debbie, I couldn't even believe I trusted her with anything. I am not shocked that her story has changed like the wind. That's typical Debbie." The following day, on October 21st, a police affidavit was released to the public that shed a lot of light on what they knew at that point in the investigation. It stated that on October 19th, a cadaver dog had searched Lisa's home after Jeremy and Deborah agreed to the search. Alarmingly enough, the dog indicated a positive hit for deceased human scent. The hit came on the floor near Jeremy and Deborah's bed. Another one of Lisa and Jeremy's attorneys, Cindy Short, spoke with Good Morning America about what the cadaver dog found, saying, and I quote, "My understanding is that there are cold cases where dogs have hit on scents of decomposition that have been in the home for as long as 28 years. This is an old home, 63 years old. There could be a lot of other explanations for that." Which, okay, maybe that makes sense. Some people say that spots where a dirty diaper was left can alert a cadaver dog, but Brad Garrett, a former FBI special agent, disagreed with the family's attorney, Cindy, saying, in studies done of cadaver dogs where the dog has direct access to the scent and it's reasonably fresh, it's above 90%. Because of what the cadaver dog found, police and the FBI wanted to search the home again through the use of a search warrant. The affidavit also suggested that Deborah and Jeremy were only letting police search so much in the home, saying the only areas extensively processed for DNA and fingerprints during the consent were the baby's bedroom and possible points of entry. Apparently, the initial searches were done with consent, and only things that were consented to were searched. Which again, if my child was missing, I may have an attorney, but search whatever the hell you want. Just get my child home. The search warrant that was put in place after the cadaver dog hit kept Lisa's family from entering the property for a few days. During the 17-hour search, a judge granted police and the FBI permission to search through a garden area at Lisa's home where the dirt had appeared to have been recently dug through. During the search, quite a few things were taken from the house, including a multicolored Disney character shirt, rolls of tape, a tape dispenser, a blanket, a comforter, purple shorts, and a glowworm toy that was apparently in Lisa's crib the night that she went missing. The team spent a lot of time outside going through the yard with shovels and rakes, and at one point, bomb and arson trucks actually came to the home with more equipment to help the search. When Brad was asked what exactly authorities were looking for, he said they were looking for items, materials, whether they be generic like DNA, hairs and fibers, or organic like leaves, dirts, all to compare to something that they have. As the search continued over a few-day period, scent canines were brought in and FBI agents in hazmat suits were seen walking around the property. Police officers were seen trying to get into the computer room window that Jeremy said had been tampered with. They wanted to see if that was a solid theory or not, which they ultimately deemed was unlikely.
They recreated that going through the window. As you can see, a detective climbed through the window to the room where she was sleeping, and the window fell down on him while he was going through there.
Another thing that the document revealed said that Deborah made the statement that she did not initially look for her baby behind the house because she was afraid of what she might find. Further information was released to the public on October 23rd, all to help corroborate earlier witnesses who said that they saw a man in that t-shirt in the middle of the night that Lisa vanished.
These three witnesses didn't know each other. Now, I'm not the KCPD, I'm not the FBI. I haven't had exposure to these witnesses. I haven't followed up and know the validity or their backgrounds. But from what I'm hearing, this is quite interesting, and this falls in directly with the timeline that we have been talking about since this first occurred.
The grainy video showed a man walking away from a wooded area around 2:30 a.m. the night that Lisa went missing. So the community was wondering if that could be Jersey or somebody else. It seemed like it was one step forward and two steps back. Up until that point, Deborah and Jeremy had two attorneys working for them, Joe and Cindy. But on October 31st, Joe fired Cindy. Cindy said, "Joe and I were not able to work as a team. Our goals and our approaches are so different that one of us has to go." Jeremy and Deborah put out a joint statement which read, "After hearing there was a press conference and listening to Mrs. Short's statement, we are further convinced that we made the correct decision. One of the reasons we relieved Mrs. Short was because she was holding her own press conferences, making statements to the media, and giving tours of the home that we were finding out about after the fact." So from then on, Joe represented them and handled everything for quite a few months until they added in a second attorney again. But prior to that, in November of 2011, a month after Lisa had disappeared, Joe went on Fox to talk with Megyn Kelly. Joe said that during the investigation, his team found an unidentified 17-year-old witness who said that they overheard Jersey bragging to someone that he was paid $300 to kidnap Lisa. Joe said that the police were notified with the information, but that the attorneys were having a hard time validating the credibility of the witness's statement. But around that time, police said that Jersey had been cooperating with police and that he was not a suspect. And the teenager who they claimed said that anonymously spoke to news sources denying that he ever heard Jersey say that, and said that he was just speculating on his character, but hadn't even seen him for a couple of weeks prior to Lisa's disappearance. So, what was the truth here? What was really going on? As the months went on, investigators received over 1,000 tips, but nothing was panning out. In February of 2012, Deborah, Jeremy, and their lawyer Joe went on the Dr. Phil show for an hour-long episode to talk about the details of the case and where things stood at that point. At first, Joe did a lot of the talking, which frustrated Dr. Phil. He wanted to hear directly from Deborah and Jeremy about this case. When asked about the time discrepancy regarding why Deborah told police that she last checked on Lisa at 10:30 p.m., but then later revealed it was actually 6:40 p.m., Deborah got very defensive, saying that she didn't think it was an inconsistency to say that she had put her to bed at 6:40 and possibly checked on her at 10:40. The polygraph test was brought back up, and while Deborah was told that she failed it by law enforcement, Deborah and Joe said that she was never actually provided proof of that, and Joe said she passed it. Joe also said that law enforcement was not focusing on another possible point of entry, which would have been the garage door that was off the tracks. The private investigator who was hired by an anonymous person also spoke, saying that while he initially believed Deborah and Jeremy had something to do with it, and even told them he was there for Lisa and not them, after really digging into it, he felt like they were not responsible, and felt that Lisa was either taken to be kept or to be sold. After the interview aired, the second attorney who had come on the case after Cindy left, named John Paserno, did an interview with a local news station and spoke on the polygraph test, clarifying again that Deborah did not fail it, and that saying someone failed is a tactic that law enforcement will use to get people to confess to something. John also discussed how they felt like they had done good on the interview with clearing up rumors, shifting focus back to Lisa, and letting the public know that Jeremy and Deborah were being and had been cooperative all along. So the public's perception really started to get divided even further following the Dr. Phil show. Some became convinced that they had nothing to do with it, while others still weren't so sure. In May of 2012, new information came out. Jeremy said that a month after Lisa vanished, on November 6th, a charge was made with his debit card that he claimed he never had made. The charge came from a British name-changing services website. The Today Show covered the story and said that at that point in May of 2012, the British website was now directing people to a stationary website. Neither Jeremy nor his attorney Joe could explain why, though. Jeremy said it used to go to the name-changing website. There's something weird going on there where it doesn't go directly there anymore, so there's something kind of weird internet thing going on. Then, following up saying, the cache, the page that we caught in November when looking at this when we found the credit card company, was a website that actually advertised change your child's name, saying, I saw that myself, our investigators have seen it, and we've turned it over to the FBI. 2 other charges were made to the card but didn't go through. Joe also said he didn't think that the police were doing enough because they were focusing too much on Jeremy and Deborah as suspects. He thought they also didn't do enough with Jersey or the 3 witnesses who said they saw that man carrying a baby. But nothing else ever came of the credit card claim. 2 years after Lisa went missing, Jeremy and Deborah had a glimmer of hope. In October of 2013, a girl who was referred to as Maria was found in a raid in Greece. Maria had blonde hair and blue eyes. Deborah and Jeremy thought that Maria could actually be Lisa. But sadly, DNA tests confirmed that she was not, and they also confirmed that Maria was around 5 or 6 years old, not 3, which is what Lisa would have been at that time. So Jeremy and Deborah were back to square one and seemed devastated. Over the next 7 years, nothing new was really reported, and it was just a game of cat and mouse. They'd get a tip, they'd follow it up, and then they'd run into another dead end. Then in April of 2020, an age progression photo of Lisa was released from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Both Deborah and Jeremy also helped make that photo of Lisa happen by using pictures of her family from around the same age as what she would have been at that point, which was 9 years old. Jeremy was pretty hopeful about the age progression photo, saying, and I quote, statistically speaking, all of the stuff that we have seen online of age progressions and then later when the person was found, they're fairly accurate, like 85 to 90% accurate. But up until this point, 3 years later, nothing new has come out. There's been no public progress on this case, and it honestly seems to have just gone cold. As for Jersey, the last time he was really heard from was in 2015. Around that time, he was serving time for vehicle tampering charges. Nothing new has really been said about him since. Dane Greathouse, the man who apparently had Megan's phone that night, was arrested in 2012 for stabbing a man, but that's really it on information on him too. It's sad to think how much Lisa has missed out on over the years with her family. Jeremy and Deborah are still together today and still holding out hope that Lisa is alive. They have a really hard time dealing with missing out on a lifetime without their daughter.
the 10 years, the 10-year anniversary, it's just a reminder that we've gone a decade without seeing our daughter. We don't know what she looks like. We don't know where she is. We don't know who she's with. So it just reminds me of everything that we've missed.
They hope that since over a decade has gone by and now that Lisa would be almost 13, that she could possibly recognize herself in her age progression photo. They have also tested their DNA with the long shot that if Lisa ever became curious about her heritage, she might go through a DNA database. After all of this time that has gone by since that mysterious October night, Lisa's parents have a strong feeling they know what happened.
If the tips are right and the information we were given is right, she was sold.
You believe she was sold?
Absolutely.
Lisa's room is still kept the same even after all of these years. Her parents have kept hope. Deborah spoke publicly about keeping the room the same and said that when she comes home, she knows that we never stopped including her. We never stopped waiting for her, and she's always been a member of our family, no matter what. Deborah also said on the 10-year anniversary of Lisa vanishing, "Our little girl is going to be 11 in November, and we don't even know what she looks like, the stuff she likes, the sound of her voice. I feel she is alive. She's out there, and eventually she's going to come home." All along throughout the frustrating investigation and thousands of tips that led to dead ends, both Deborah and Jeremy have spoken about Lisa in the present tense, just waiting for the day that they can be reunited. The $100,000 reward is still in place for Lisa. This case is beyond confusing. From the missing cell phones tracing back to calling Jersey's ex-girlfriend to the cadaver dog getting a hit on Deborah and Jeremy's master bedroom carpet, this case is just all over the place. It's frustrating that nothing more seemed to be looked into with Jersey or the cell phones. I mean, how weird is it that Deborah and Jeremy's phones went missing on the same night as Lisa, and one of them just so happened to make a 50-second call to Jersey's ex Megan. And 3 separate people saw a man walking with a baby in the middle of the night. Now I'm curious what you guys think as to whether or not that was a coincidence or not. Not to mention the dumpster fire with baby clothing burning. It seemed like one bizarre thing after another happened the night that Lisa disappeared. Do you think that baby Lisa was abducted? Or do you think that this is just a case of an accidental death that either one or both of the parents covered up? I still have a hard time knowing where I stand in this case, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But what I will say is the fact that Megan was saying she wanted a baby earlier, and her and Jersey seemed to be rocky and then broken up. It doesn't seem far-fetched to me that Jersey may have abducted Lisa to then present Megan with a baby as a way to get back in her good graces and get back together, have the bond, have the love, have the happy family she wanted. I mean, it's wild, don't get me wrong, and it's absolutely batshit crazy, but we've seen that happen before. We've seen people steal babies out of a woman's womb who's their friend so that they could play on this relationship and family fantasy that they have with their partner. I'm curious to know what you guys think. As I mentioned, the public is divided. Do you think that this was an abduction? Or do you think that the parents are involved? Regardless, Lisa has never been found to this day. So please, if there is any chance that she is in fact out there and alive, she may recognize herself in the age progression photo. So please share the link to this video on your community post, your social media, your group chat, your Facebook, your Instagram, anywhere you can. Comment on it for the algorithm, do all of the things, because the more likely that people see this video and maybe will recognize her from the age progression photo, or even Lisa see herself, the more likely answers can be had, and ultimately accountability, justice, a happy reunion, hopefully, all of the things. So please work your magic, YouTube, because we hate when little kids are missing and missing out on what could be potentially a happy and safe life. Again, assuming that this was nothing to do with her parents, which honestly we don't know. So let me know what you think below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with me on today's case, and until the next one, stay safe. Bye.